Good morning. May 10th, 1940. That's the day Germany invaded France. On that day, the French people were concerned, but not panicked. After all, France had the best military in all of Europe. They had strong fortifications like the Maginot Line, a wall on the border with Germany, complete with underground forts and reinforced concrete artillery fields in it. It was considered to be impenetrable. Even the natural terrain was in their favor. The Ardennes forest was thought to be impassable to German tanks. And on top of that, World War I had shown them that these things take time. The newspapers, the experts, were predicting a long, slow victory. But on June 25th, French commanders formally surrendered to the Germans. What a difference 50 days can make. There are all kinds of examples like that throughout history, and maybe even in your own lives, where things look wildly different just 50 days later. But the truth is, it's never just 50 days. It's more than the passage of time. There are always hinge points, pivotal moments. The breaching of the wall, the passage through the forest that make a difference. The story of Peter is one of those 50-day stories. We heard about him in our second Bible reading from John chapter 21, and we're going to use that story to explore a question that keeps so many of us awake at night. What if I messed up too badly? What if I ruined God's plan? Either by some wrong turn I made, maybe I missed a sign, or maybe I made the wrong choice. Maybe I'm supporting the Patriots over the Seahawks this afternoon. Or maybe by something that I did that makes me unfixable, unusable. And by the way, I don't think that you have to put this through the framework of God's plan to ask questions like that. Did I go wrong somewhere? Did I make a wrong choice or mess up in a way that means I'm done? Believers and non-believers alike, I think we all wonder this. Maybe your life just didn't turn out the way you thought it would. Or you're grappling with the implications of our culture right now that embraces canceling. That says if you go the wrong direction or if you stray too far outside the norms, you're canceled, you're done. So if you're with us today or if you're watching online and you don't think about life through the lens of God's plan, I'm glad you're here. And I hope you'll find some encouragement through what we're about to talk about. And if you have a friend or a neighbor or a family member who doesn't see the world this way or doesn't look at life in terms of God, it's a safe bet they're still asking these things, still wondering about this, so you can share this with them too. We'll come to that, but let's get back to Peter. Peter was one of the first people that Jesus invited to follow him. He was around from the very beginning. Everything there was to see, he saw it. Food where there wasn't any, blind people who could see, lame people walking, every incredible miracle and every powerful conversation and argument against the religious leaders, he saw it all. He even walked on top of the water at one point. This is the extent to which Peter was in it. Now, Peter wasn't his real name. His given name was Simon. That's why he sometimes has two names throughout the Bible. Jesus called him Peter. It's a word that means rock. There was a moment, a conversation between them where Simon said, "You are Jesus. You, Jesus, are the Christ." That means the one God promised to send. And Jesus responded by saying, "You are Peter, rock, and on this rock I will build my church." It's not quite clear whether Jesus meant on this affirmation that you've made or on you, Simon, who I've just named Peter. The Catholics think it meant Peter himself. If you've ever wondered where the Pope came from, or why the Pope is the leader of the Catholic Church. These words are why. They understand Jesus to be saying, "On you, Peter, I will build the church." They understand him to be naming Peter as the leader of the church. Peter went on to be the first bishop of Rome, the head of the church in Rome. So those words to Peter, "I will build my church," are why every other bishop of Rome is the leader of the Catholic Church. And every other bishop of Rome, which is the same role as Pope, is directly connected in the line of succession with Peter. Whether that's exactly what Jesus meant or not, it's clear that Peter was an important person with an important role and a really close relationship with Jesus. But when that relationship really mattered, when it came time for faith, his fell flat. When Jesus was arrested and eventually crucified, that took most of a night. And during that time, there were 3 moments when Peter was asked, sometimes very directly, whether he knew Jesus or was connected with him. And all 3 times, Peter's answer was, never heard of him. He deserted Jesus at his lowest moment. And that's the backdrop to the conversation we read about today. But it is not the end of Peter's story. 50 days after Jesus' resurrection, a day that in the church we know as Pentecost, it doesn't matter if you know the story, here's what happened. On that day, 50 days after the resurrection, it was Peter who preached a sermon so powerful, so convicting, that 3,000 people came to faith in Jesus that day. What a difference 50 days can make. But like usual, it wasn't just 50 days. Just like the experience of the French, there were turning points. In this case, in the case of Peter, the turning point was the conversation with Jesus in the book of John, chapter 21, that we just read. And that turning point for Peter has a lot to offer us. When in those quiet moments when we start to wonder, have I messed up too badly and did I ruin God's plan? So let's dig into it. Peter was fishing when Jesus showed up on the shore. He'd been a fisherman before, and there's this sense of having failed Jesus and not really knowing what else to do or where to go from here. Peter and the others, they know Jesus is alive because they've seen him already. But they don't seem to know what else to do. And Peter especially, Peter is messed up. He really messed up badly, and he doesn't really know where he stands. So he just goes back to what was, to his old life before Jesus. Isn't that so much like what we do? We get ourselves in these moments where we've messed up so badly and we have no expectation of seeing Jesus there. So we just go back to what was. For Peter, he was a fisherman, so he goes back to fishing. But Jesus wasn't done with him. Jesus had made him a fisher of men, and that didn't change. That was a purpose statement, a mission given to him. Jesus had placed a purpose and a value on his life that wasn't undone by one mistake or one wrong turn, even a really big one. And I want you to know that about you today too. Jesus has placed a value and a purpose on your life. He stamped you as valuable when he died for you. And that value and that purpose isn't going to be undone by one mistake or one wrong turn or even by a series of them. That's true, by the way, even if you don't know who Jesus is. You have value that won't be erased or undone by one mistake or one wrong turn. For us here in the church, baptism is the assurance of that. In the face of a culture that often says the opposite, one wrong move, one wrong opinion, you're done, baptism is the moment in time where we can look and see that Jesus says something different about us, about you. The assurance of the truth that there is value about you that stands over and above what you do or don't do, what you say or you don't say. So if you want that same assurance, it comes through baptism. Let's talk about that. Your value remains, even in the wake of a wrong decision. Which means you can do what Peter did. you can do what Peter did. Let me also quickly say before I move on, this is true even also of that person you care about, that person you love, who maybe is just throwing their life away. Jesus is not done with them. Now, that's not a justification or an excuse for what they're up to, but Jesus is not done with them. If they're baptized, that promise is assured, no matter how far they might stray. And if they're not, Jesus is working like mad, even now, to get to them. They have value, as you do too. And that's why you can do what Peter did. When he recognized Jesus on the shore, John says Peter jumped into the water and took off toward him. They were only about 100 yards away. He could have waited. The boat shows up just a few minutes later. But Peter jumps in the water and takes off after Jesus. Now, remember, Peter had messed up. He'd failed. And so far, that was just kind of hanging in the air. It hadn't been discussed yet or reconciled yet. Peter's in that limbo that probably all of us have experienced when we know that we've hurt someone, but it hasn't really been talked about yet, so we're not quite sure where we stand with them. He's in that moment, that uncertainty, but even still, something in him just seems to be drawn to Jesus. Something in him just seems to know this is the right move, and that's the place to be. And here's the thing. When he gets there to the shore, Jesus doesn't say, "What are you doing? Get away from me." The opposite. He welcomes him to breakfast. So the next time you start to feel like you made the wrong choice or you messed up too badly and you ruined God's plan, go ahead and do what Peter did. Run to Jesus. You don't have to hang back or hide. Turn to him. His arms are open and he's ready to welcome you, just as he did Peter. Turn to him means turn that feeling of fear and dread, that feeling of uselessness, turn it over to him. Give it to Jesus. In prayer, of course, yeah, talk to him about it. But this gets to our self-talk as well. What are you saying to yourself in those moments where you feel like you failed? Are you saying, "That's it, I blew it, I'm the worst"? Try this instead. When you start to feel like you've messed up and that same old mental soundtrack fires up, instead say to yourself, Jesus has this. He will restore it. Remind yourself of that. Jesus has this. He will restore it. Because he does, and he will. The example of Peter is the pattern for it. After breakfast, there's a conversation between Peter and Jesus, and we need to talk about it because it's powerful. This is the one where Jesus keeps asking, "Do you love me?" And Peter starts to get upset because he keeps on asking. First of all, Jesus is asking 3 times because Peter fell down 3 times. He's giving Peter the opportunity to confess every single one of them. Not to shame him or burden him. Jesus does not operate that way. And friends, he will not come at you that way either. Jesus will not come at you with shame or burden. Not to shame him, but to heal him. Because what is confessed, what is acknowledged, can then be healed. So Jesus gives exactly as much healing as Peter needs, exactly as much restoration as what needs to be restored. Nothing is kept back. Nothing is held as a grudge. Know that about yourselves. Know that for you too today. If there's something in your life and you're kind of not ready to talk about it with Jesus yet, and you're not quite sure how he feels about it, and it's hard for you to bring it to him, know this. When you confess it, when you acknowledge it, nothing is held back between Jesus and you as a grudge. Everything is healed and restored. If Peter had fallen down 9 times or 90 times, then Jesus would have done this confession and restoration 90 times. And the same is true for you. You cannot run out or deplete Jesus' forgiveness. Let me say that again. You cannot run out or deplete Jesus' forgiveness. If you come to him with that confession 90 times, then he will restore you 90 times. If you make the wrong choice 90 times, he will restore you every single one of them. And he keeps on saying in the middle of that, feed my sheep, shepherd them. Now that's Jesus' job. Who's the shepherd? Jesus is the shepherd. So he's giving Peter his own job, not backbench work, not probationary reinstatement, important, meaningful work. And so I want you to take that for yourself this morning too. If you've come before Jesus and you feel like you've messed up badly and you've made the wrong turn, I want you to know he has an important place for you even yet in his kingdom. He has valuable, important work for you to do even now in his kingdom. He is not done with you. And it's not a probationary reinstatement that you get. It is as a full child of God. One more thing I want to show you about this conversation. Jesus asked 3 times, do you love me? 2 times, the word he uses for love is the same, it's eros. The 3rd time, he uses a different word. Do you phileo me? Now, you guys know me enough by now to know that I'm not one to play around in the Greek just to be impressive. But seeing this, I think, really, really will build you up. So here we go. Twice, Jesus asked, do you eros love me? Do you deeply, passionately love me? Peter says yes. But the 3rd time, he asks, do you phileo love me? Which is more like, are you friendly toward me? He lowers the bar. Why? Well, because deep, passionate love, Peter's never going to be able to live up to that consistently. A lower level love is the best Peter's going to be able to do. And so by changing course, by lowering the bar, Jesus is signaling that he's going to work with what Peter has to give. You know where I'm going with this. It's true for you too. Jesus will work with what you have to give. So give yourself permission to have less than the best, because God already has. Give yourself permission to have less than the best, because God already has. Some of you grew up in homes or with parents where you had to be at the top of your game, the very best at everything in all the right times and all the right order, and you have deep scars from that. Some of you have been out of your parents' house for decades, but you still have deep scars from that. But even if you didn't grow up with it, you're living it now. If you're a young man, you have to be strong and athletic, smooth with the ladies, but also empowering and respectful, manly, but also sensitive, and understand your feelings. And young women have to be attractive, whatever that means at the current moment, perfectly shaped and perfectly dressed, but not asking for it, independent, but also letting a man provide for them because they like that sometimes. Most of that's true for older women too, but add on to that, having it all together, managing a career and also a household and being tough, but also nurturing. And if you're a mother, there's so many other layers on top of that. And men should be quiet providers and also, though, in touch with their feelings and should know how to handle anything and keep it all together, even when that hurts. Give yourself permission to have less than the best, because God already has. The whole point of the cross is he's got this. He's going to be the one who will make right what is broken and supply what is lacking. He's going to work with what you have. So give yourself permission to miss the sign and go the wrong way sometimes. God will be there. He has the map. And when you do, or when you just start to worry that you might have gone the wrong way and messed things up and made the wrong choice and ruined the plan, return back to this story of Peter. Remind yourself that Jesus has placed value and purpose on your life that won't be undone by one wrong move. Say to yourself out loud if you have to, he's got this. He'll handle it, because he will. Even if you've had to say that a lot, you can't outrun his healing. Say it again and again. Come to him again and again and rest in that knowledge that he will work with what you have. In Jesus' name, amen.